It's already over, and the police report just hit the system. By the time the comments noticed, somebody had already walked into a precinct, signed 3 documents, and quietly mentioned a firearm. And the woman she was filing on? Had no clue the paperwork was being drafted in real time. This wasn't a beef anymore. This was a paper trail. And by the time you finish this video, you're going to understand exactly why nobody from the inside wants this story circulating. Listen. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I'm new to internet drama. I've seen aunties throw hands, I've seen rappers throw bottles, I've seen managers throw their own clients under the bus on live. But this week? This week was different. Because this week somebody finally said the quiet part out loud at a courthouse, on camera, while a uniformed officer stood there blinking like he just walked into the wrong building. So sit down. Lock the door. Put your phone face down. Because the way these stories connect? You're gonna feel like you're reading a private group chat that wasn't supposed to leak. Let's get into it. Now before we open the file on the anti-courthouse situation, we gotta talk about how this entire week even started, because it started with one tiny clip that nobody thought would matter. Somebody caught up with Offset on the street, stuck a mic in his face, and asked him the most harmless little question in the world, what's the song of the summer? And without blinking, without flinching, without even pretending to think about it, Offset said the song of the summer is Drake's record Shebane featuring Quavo. Just like that. No hesitation. No diplomacy. No, let me support my city first. Nothing. And listen, on the surface, that's a clean little soundbite. Cute. Harmless. But baby, the second that clip dropped, the internet did what the internet does best, it pulled out the receipts. Because Offset co-signing a Drake and Quavo collab is the kind of statement that has 6 different fanbases setting up tribunals in the quote tweets. Cardi's camp side-eyed it. Migos fans started doing math. Drake's loyal soldiers started celebrating. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, one person was definitely not bumping that song this summer. Because that person was about to get her name pulled into a police report. Let me explain. So while everybody else is debating whether Offset is allowed to have a favorite song without it being a coded message to his ex, Tokyo Tony, aka Shalana Hunter, decides to take her entire personal beef with Tia Kemp and walk it through the front door of a Maryland precinct. Not vent it on live. Not subtweet it. Not let her aunties hash it out in the comments. No. She walked into a building with metal detectors and asked a commissioner for paperwork. And I want you to picture this with me. Picture a grown woman, leaning forward toward the commissioner, lowering her voice, whispering, "Come closer, because I don't want people in my business," while she is at the same time recording this entire interaction on her phone with the full intent of uploading it to a platform where, by her own admission, 1.2 million people are watching her every move. Child. Sir. Ma'am. The math is not mathing. Now here's what she actually filed for. 3-piece orders. 1 for herself, 2 for her grandchildren, who, by the way, are roughly 13 and 8 or 9 years old. At $115 per filing. That's $345 of anti-money going straight into the courthouse coffers before lunch. And when the commissioner gently, and I do mean gently, asked her if Tia had ever threatened the children directly, she paused, fumbled the answer, and then pivoted to, well, she keeps saying their names. That was the whole case. She keeps saying their names. Sir. People say my name. I don't go file paperwork. I block, I mute, I move on with my Tuesday. But Tokyo wasn't done. Because then, and this is the part the cleanup edits keep cutting out, she looked at the officer and said, and I'm paraphrasing only slightly, because of these threats, I just want you to know that I'm about to go purchase a firearm. Out loud. To a sworn officer. With the camera rolling. In a building literally designed to keep that exact sentence off the public record. Now hold up. Hold up. Hold all the way up. Because here's where it gets messy. The day before Tokyo Tony walked into that precinct, Tia Kemp had already gone live with a warning. A direct one. No subliminals. No emojis. Just straight to camera, talking like somebody who knew the paperwork was coming before the paperwork was filed. She said, and I want to read this slow so you catch it, Miss Shalana Hunter, aka Tokyo Tony. If you play with the police with me, I'm going to make all my fans and followers contact the courthouse and we going to have your act. Now play police if you want to play with the police, because you started with me. Now you want to call the police? Play police, and we gonna have your act. That's not freestyle. That's a position statement. And before anybody could even react, Tia kept going. She went into one of those rapid-fire insult runs that gossip TikTok lives for. She called Tokyo Tony a lemon without the aid. A grave with no headstone. A money order with $1 on it. A straw with no barrel. A whole beach with no sand. A cup with no water. She said the cup had run over. And then, because the universe loves chaos, Tia pivoted mid-rant and threw a shot at China, the rapper. Said China's daughter follows her. Said China herself wanted her on a song. Said the manager never called back. Said send some prayer hearts and a lighter. And just like that, what started as a two-woman feud became a three-act play with a celebrity cameo nobody asked for. So now ask yourself, why is this happening? Because somewhere along the way, the algorithm taught us that going viral is more valuable than going home. These aunties are not fighting over a man. They're not fighting over a contract. They're not even really fighting over the kids. They're fighting over visibility. Over reposts. Over who gets to be the main character in a comment section that will forget both of their names in approximately 9 days. And I'll tell you something for free, there are a handful of people on the internet right now who genuinely need a digital cooling off period. Not a ban. Not a cancellation. Just a quiet week without Wi-Fi. Because the desire to be relevant has these grown women filing peace orders like they're collecting Pokemon cards. But listen, that's just chapter 1 of this week's mess. Stay with me. Because while the aunties were at the courthouse, the actual celebrities were doing the most. And one of them was Cardi B. Now before we get into Cardi, because trust me, we are getting into Cardi, I want to pause for just one more beat on this Tokyo Tony situation, because there is a detail in that footage that flew right past most viewers. When the commissioner asked her if she wanted to shield her home address from the paperwork, she didn't say yes the way you'd say yes to a normal courthouse question. She said it like a punchline. She said it with the kind of theatrical lean that told me, and I think told a lot of people, that she knew exactly which frame of that interaction was going to be the thumbnail before she even got home. That's not paranoia. That's content planning. And insiders who follow these gossip feuds for a living have been quietly pointing out that there is now an entire economy of women, men, and personalities who deliberately schedule public conflict around their best lighting. Police stations have become studios. Lawyers' offices have become green rooms. Courthouse hallways have become red carpets. And the people who used to brag about staying out of court are now bragging about how many cases they have pending. We are watching a real-time inversion of what dignity used to mean. And what scares me, what genuinely scares me, is that the kids in this scenario didn't ask for any of this. 2 children, 8 or 9 and 13. Children who, in 20 years, will be able to Google their own names and find every clip of every adult arguing about them. Children who will read every comment section. Children who will know exactly which grown woman wanted to buy a firearm because of a feud about them. And no peace order in the world is going to undo that digital footprint once it is uploaded. So while the aunties go viral, the kids inherit the receipts. That is the part the algorithm will never tell you. Anyway. Back to Cardi. Now Cardi did something this week that almost never happens. She lost her composure on a live, and instead of dragging a hater, she dragged her own fanbase. And honey, it was layered. Here's the setup. Cardi just wrapped her tour. Months of 2-hour shows. 40-person meet and greets after every set. After parties. Tour bus rides where she couldn't sleep because she's noise sensitive. Gasoline fumes triggering her asthma. 3 months straight of grind. And the second the tour curtain dropped, fans started flooding her timeline with the same question on loop, where's the summer single? So Cardi finally snapped. She got on live and said, and I'm giving you the heart of it, y'all expect A, y'all expect B, y'all expect C, y'all expect D. Did I say I was going to drop new music? Yes. But I've been writing every single day. I'm not just gonna put no, and you know what I'm not gonna put, out. I want to make sure that what I drop is right. And then she said the line that broke the internet for about 45 minutes. She said, I'm not under no man. I'm home with my kids. I go to the spa. I go on solo dates. I went to the movies by myself the other day. And what I really wanted to do after tour was go to my grandparents' village and disappear. No wig. No makeup artist. No fancy dressing. Just dirt roads. But I can't, because my kids are in school. Child. Cardi tried to give a real answer and the comments tried to turn it into a confession. People started analyzing every word like it was a Drake lyric. Why she said she's not under a man? Who said she was under a man? Who's the man? And the answer is, nobody asked her, but the internet decided. Now here's the part that nobody on TikTok wants to admit. Cardi is right. She's also wrong. Both can be true. She's right because she's a grown woman who just completed a brutal tour and she does not owe the internet a single dropped track on anybody's deadline but her own. Take the spa day. Take the solo movie. Take the village vacation. Disappear. Reset. But she's also a little wrong because, and I say this with love, nobody on TikTok actually has the authority to schedule her studio time. Nobody. Not one comment. Not one quote tweet. Not one playlist gatekeeper. So why are we getting on live and addressing them like they're our A&R? You don't have to respond to every nag. You can just, not. Because here's what I'm scared of for Cardi. I don't want her to look up one day and realize she took a 6-year break and the audience she had at 33 doesn't respond the same way to 39-year-old Cardi. Because the music industry is brutal like that. The same fans begging you to drop now will be the same ones writing she fell off think pieces if she waits too long. And here is the angle nobody is naming. Cardi is one of a very small group of female rappers in this current era who has crossed over into the kind of mainstream visibility where her silence becomes a story by itself. When Beyoncé goes quiet, the silence is part of the rollout. When Rihanna goes quiet, the silence is the rollout. But Cardi has not been quiet long enough yet for her silence to read as strategy. So every day she spends offline, the narrative writes itself for her. And the narrative is almost never kind to women in rap who let too much time pass between projects. The bar she was held to during WAP is not the bar she'll be held to during her comeback single. The internet remembers everything except patience. But while Cardi was rebuking her own comment section, somebody else was getting publicly summoned. Whitney Rose from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City got on her live, and looking sad as ever, said, "I'm sitting here feeling sorry for myself because I just listened to Rihanna's entire playlist and I just realized, we still have no new music from Rihanna. My favorite. My queen. Still nothing." And then, Rihanna herself slid into the comments and wrote 3 words. "I feel attacked." That's it. That's the whole reply. No promo. No release date. No track list. Just "I feel attacked." And the internet collectively lost it. Because if Rihanna is at the "I feel attacked" stage of her music return, baby, that album is not dropping in this fiscal quarter. Maybe not this fiscal year. Maybe not in this entire administration. Because Rihanna runs on Rihanna time, and Rihanna time is a sovereign nation with no extradition treaty. And honestly, I am beginning to suspect that Rihanna has quietly retired from music in a way that none of us are emotionally ready to acknowledge yet. She has Fenty. She has Savage. She has a family. She has empires that pay her hourly more than most albums pay artists annually. The math for her to step back into a recording booth no longer makes financial sense unless the project is meaningful enough to disrupt her entire calendar. So every fan post is essentially a polite hostage negotiation with a woman who has already paid her own ransom in skincare. Now keep watching. Because the next character to enter this mess has a plastic bag full of cash and absolutely zero impulse control. Enter Finesse 2 times. For the people in the back who don't know what a count-off is, let me put you on. A count-off is when a fan pulls out their entire bankroll and challenges a celebrity to pull out their bankroll, and the two of them stand on the sidewalk counting bills like it's the 1800s and direct deposit hasn't been invented. Whoever has the bigger stack wins the bragging rights, the clout, and the very high statistical probability of getting followed home. Now Finesse 2 times participated in one of these on camera this week. Just stood there. Counted bills. Showed his stack. Walked off. Listen. With all the love in my heart and zero judgment in my voice, if you are a grown man carrying every dollar you have ever earned in your life wrapped in a rubber band stuffed into a plastic Walmart bag, that is not a flex. That is a financial literacy emergency. Because what that bag is actually telling me is that you do not have a checking account. Your money is not earning interest. There is no fraud protection. There is no FDIC insurance. There is just you, vibes, and a hope and a prayer that nobody follows you out the parking lot. And before y'all come for me, I am not knocking having cash. Cash is fine. Cash is king for certain situations. But a Walmart bag full of singles is not the move when there are mobile banking apps that will literally let you photograph a check while you're on the toilet. Here's the deeper concern, though, and I want you to actually hear me on this one. Cash culture in rap has historically been weaponized against the very artists performing it. Every viral count-off becomes evidence. Every cash fan becomes a paper trail. The IRS does not care about your aesthetic. Insurance companies do not care about your aesthetic. Robbery suspects do not care about your aesthetic. They all care about one thing and one thing only, the literal documented existence of unaccounted for cash inside a publicly identifiable hand. So when you film yourself winning a count-off, you are not just flexing. You are testifying. And the prosecution always gets a copy. Now, speaking of men making questionable cash-related decisions, let me tell you about the dude who decided that the most romantic thing he could possibly do after a breakup was show up to his ex's house, ring the Ring doorbell, and fan out a stack of bills in front of the camera. Like a magician. Like a contestant on a game show. Like he expected her to swing the door open, drop to her knees, and beg him to take her back over a fistful of 20s. Sir. The dumb thing about this is that you already left. You already walked away. You already decided this woman was no longer the assignment. And then, the moment a little money landed in your account, the first move you could think of was to drive across town and present that money to the exact person you said you didn't want. With a video camera? That auto-uploads to the cloud? That she will absolutely play in front of her next boyfriend at brunch? Brother. The Ring doorbell is not your stage. It is her front door. And the comments told on him too. One person said, "I hate when people are so shallow and think money is everything." Another said, "I wouldn't have said anything. I just would have called someone to rob him as soon as he left from bothering me." And my personal favorite, "And a chick like me still wouldn't want him." Because here's the thing about Ring cam revenge that nobody is saying out loud. When you do this, you are not flexing on her. You are flexing for her. You are advertising that she still has so much real estate in your brain that you organized an entire outfit, drove across town, and choreographed a money fan just to get her attention. That is not power. That is residency. She lives there now. And here is the new pattern that nobody on the big gossip pages is connecting yet. Over the last 60 to 90 days, there has been a noticeable uptick in what people online are starting to call doorbell flexes. Men returning to ex-girlfriends' homes specifically to perform for the Ring camera. Some bring flowers. Some bring cars. Some bring new partners. Some bring cash. The unifying theme is always the same: they are not there for her. They are there for the upload. The doorbell has quietly become one of the most influential cameras of this decade, and nobody is filing a lawsuit because nobody invented a rulebook fast enough. But while one man was fanning cash at a doorbell, another man was operating heavy machinery, and his name is Kodak Black. Somehow, somewhere, somebody handed Kodak Black the keys to a bulldozer at an active construction site. A bulldozer. A multi-ton industrial vehicle. And let me tell you something, Kodak was driving that bulldozer like it was a two-door coupe. Tearing through debris. Cranking the lever. Talking trash to the camera in between scoops. Y'all breaking that down for real. Get that done. Do your thing, cousin. And listen, on the one hand, I'm scared for everybody on that job site. OSHA was screaming somewhere. On the other hand, if the rap game ever truly dries up, and that is a big if, Kodak might genuinely have a career in light demolition. He looked at home in that cab. He looked at peace. There was a serenity in him that I have not seen in any music video he's released this year. Honestly, and I'm saying this with full sincerity, there is something to be said for an artist who finds a moment of quiet inside a piece of industrial equipment. Whatever therapy that man has been doing, the bulldozer is working harder than any music label ever did. Hire that bulldozer. Put it on payroll. Give it a publishing deal. And it's funny, because while Kodak was wrecking concrete for fun, Glorilla was online wrecking the rumor mill. Somebody, and you know who you are, started a whisper that Gorilla might be pregnant. So Gorilla hopped on her own live and shut it down with the kind of speech you write in your notes app at 3 in the morning after a breakup. She said, "Am I pregnant? If I was, I don't got long to be. If I was, not for long. I don't love these dudes no more. Let me tell y'all why. Every year, I weigh between 123 and 130. I can't lose no weight, because none of these men around me are out here breaking my heart anymore. It only took one time. One man broke my heart so bad I didn't eat for 30 days. I lost my appetite for 2 months straight. I turned into a leaf in the wind. Every time the wind blew, I was blowing with it. I don't got no spare weight on my body. All my weight is in my behind. I am nothing but goddamn ass and bones." Now, 2 things can be true. Number 1, that speech was iconic and I'm going to be quoting it at brunch for the next 8 months. Number 2, the math on 30 days turning into 2 months straight is not adding up, but we're going to let Gorilla cook because the emotional integrity of that monologue was airtight even when the calendar wasn't. And here's what people aren't saying about Gorilla right now. She has become, almost by accident, the most honest woman in rap. Not the most polished. Not the most political. The most honest. Because when she says "I turned into a leaf in the wind," she is telling on herself in a way that most artists run an entire PR team to avoid. There is no team in the world that signs off on a leaf metaphor. That came from her chest. And that is exactly why her audience refuses to let her go. But the real heartbreak story of the week didn't come from a celebrity. It came from a regular man with a microphone, a fiancé, and a confession that he timed exactly 5 minutes too late. Now buckle in. Because this one is layered. There's a viral clip going around this week of a man, engaged, ring on her finger, wedding already in motion, who decided that the appropriate time to inform his fiancée that he had previously slept with multiple men during his college years was approximately 72 hours before the rehearsal dinner. Not on the first date. Not before the proposal. Not even on the night of the engagement party. No. He waited until the dress was bought, the venue was booked, the deposits were non-refundable, and the family was on their way in from out of town. And when she called the wedding off, which, may I add, is the most rational thing any human being has ever done, he had the audacity to look into the camera and lecture her. He said, "And I want you to feel every syllable of this, just because I slept with a few youth in the past in college does not mean you sit there and call the wedding off. It was college. It was college. It was college. You acted like you were never curious before. I'm a man. Any woman would want a man like me. Any woman. Sir. Be quiet." Then he said, "And this is where the video really turned, you're judging me. That's alright. That's alright. I'll pull up. I'm a different man now. It's not finished. It's not finished. It's not finished." 6 times. He said "it's not finished" 6 times. Like saying it harder was going to override her right to leave. Now I already know the comments are about to be on fire, so let me be very clear about something. Calling off a wedding because you found out something material the night before the ceremony, that is not judgment. That is consent. Marriage is consent. And consent requires information. You don't get to withhold the details of who you are, hand somebody a ring, and then accuse them of being narrow-minded when they find out the truth on Tuesday and walk on Friday. Because here's the part that buried him in the comments. According to multiple commenters on the original clip, the situation wasn't just college experimentation. People in the replies said this woman's claim was that he had been involved with his male best friend. The best friend. The man who was still in his life. The man who was probably invited to the wedding. And once that detail hit the timeline, it was over. The comments were a graveyard. One person said, "She did right." Another said, "He should have told her at the start and given her the choice." Another said, 10 years and 2 kids later, he'd have been talking about how he had to live his truth. Don't walk. Sprint. Another said, they were still doing it. You better believe it. And listen, whether all of those claims are true or not, I cannot independently verify a comment section. But here is what I can verify. The principle. You cannot demand someone marry you on the basis of incomplete information and then call them shallow for taking the information seriously the moment they get it. That is not a partnership. That is a contract signed under duress. So fellas, take notes. Ladies, take notes. Day 1. First date. Appetizer at Applebee's. Tell them who you are. Let them opt in or opt out. Anything less than that is a setup. And one more thing on this, because I see the keyboards warming up. The disclosure conversation is not about shaming anyone for who they have slept with in the past. It is about timing. It is about respect. It is about giving the other person enough information to give informed consent. Plenty of people have complex sexual histories and have beautiful, healthy marriages. The difference is, those people told the truth before the deposits were paid. That is the whole assignment. Tell the truth in time for the other person to make a real choice. Anything else is a trap dressed up as a wedding. Now I told you this week was layered. And we're not done. Because while one man was lecturing his ex about her right to leave, another man was lecturing his hospital room camera about people who didn't visit him. And that man's name is Ray J. Now if you missed the boxing event, Ray J got into a ring with a man named Super Hotfire at one of Adin Ross's promoted events in Las Vegas. He got knocked down. Hard. And according to multiple outlets, he checked himself into a Las Vegas hospital approximately 2 hours after the fight, where he has reportedly been for several days while doctors run tests on his heart, which has historically given him trouble, and check for a concussion. He has previously been hospitalized this year for pneumonia and heart issues, so on paper, the hospital visit makes sense. But the videos. My God. The videos. Ray J has been posting from the hospital bed. Plural. Multiple videos. And in the most recent one, somebody, a friend, a visitor, somebody behind a phone, is asking him whether Adin Ross has reached out, whether brand risk-related people from the promotion have checked on him, whether anybody from the team has even called. And Ray J, lying in the bed, looking weakened, looking pained, says, nobody. They didn't care. They didn't even let me in the back with the ambulance. I had to bring myself to the hospital. The promoters didn't care about the fighters. It was terrible. It was a terrible group of people to work with. And listen. On its face, that's a heartbreaking thing to hear. Athletes deserve aftercare. Period. Combat sports require medical support. Period. But here's what people online started to question very quickly. If you were so medically fragile that you needed multi-day hospitalization with concussion screenings, why did you sign up to fight in a boxing ring in the first place? Whose insurance cleared you? Who looked at your cardiac history and said, yeah, go ahead and take blunt force trauma to the chest for entertainment purposes? And, most importantly, who is filming you in the hospital bed and uploading those clips while you are supposedly fighting for your health? Because here is what is being whispered in the corners of the internet that nobody on the big timelines wants to say. Ray J has been in what some people are calling his hospital era. Multiple posts. Multiple framings. Multiple statements that drag a promoter, a network, a peer, a brand. And the more posts that drop, the louder the question gets, is this a real medical crisis being shared because the public deserves to know, or is this a crisis being curated because the algorithm rewards it? The comments were not kind. One viewer said, I'm sick of Ray J. Another said, if you're really that sick, you'd be turning the phone off. Another said, he's clout chasing from a hospital bed. That's a new low even for him. I'm not going to render a verdict. I'm not in the room. I'm not on his medical chart. But I am going to say this, when your hospitalization comes with a content schedule, the public is going to ask questions. That's just math. And while we're on the subject of the Adin Ross fight ecosystem, here's the bigger pattern nobody is putting together. Almost every single celebrity who has stepped into one of these influencer-promoted boxing events in the last 2 years has come out worse than they went in. Either with a reputation hit, or a relationship publicly imploding, or a hospitalization that turns into a documentary on their own page. And nobody is asking, at what point do we stop treating these fights like entertainment and start treating them like the slow-motion train wrecks they actually are? Here is the part one want to leave specifically on the record. The promoters in this space have figured out a financial loophole that traditional boxing never had. They do not need the fighters to be skilled. They do not need the fighters to be young. They do not need the fighters to be insured properly. They only need the fighters to be famous enough to put on a streaming pay-per-view title card. And once that title card sells, the consequences belong to the fighter. not the promoter. That is not boxing. That is a casino. And the house always wins. Now I want to pull back for a second. Because if you've been watching this whole video, you've noticed a pattern, even if I haven't said it out loud yet. Every single story I just walked you through, every single one, has the same route. Camera. The auntie at the courthouse? Filming. The auntie warning her on live? Filming. The dude with the cash van at the Ring doorbell? Filming. The dude with the count-off on the corner? Filming. The man lecturing his ex-fiancée about why she shouldn't call off the wedding? Filming. Ray J in the hospital bed? Filming. Cardi venting on live? Filming. Glow monologuing about her leaf in the wind era? Filming. Kodak in the bulldozer? Filming. Every single one. We have entered a phase of celebrity culture, and frankly, of culture itself, where no event is real until it is recorded, no emotion is valid until it is uploaded, and no consequence is final until it has a comment section. And that is why this week looked the way it looked. Because every single person in this video had a moment that could have stayed private, and chose, instead, to make it everybody's business. And I don't say that to be a hater. I'm in the same machine. I'm in it right now. I'm filming this video. I'm in the trap with them. We all are. But somewhere along the way, the line between sharing your truth and selling your dignity got blurred so badly that a grown woman now whispers come closer to a uniformed officer because she's directing the cinematic version of her own restraining order. Now I want to leave you with a few questions. Because the comments are where this video actually lives. Question 1. Should Tokyo Toni have walked into that precinct, or should she have logged off for a week and let the algorithm forget both her and Tia? Question 2. Is Cardi B owed a break, or is she making a tactical mistake by responding to a comment section that doesn't pay her bills? Question 3. If you were engaged to somebody and they dropped a confession like that the week of the wedding, are you walking, are you running, or are you reconsidering? Question 4. Is Ray J seriously ill, or is the hospital era a content strategy? Question 5. And this one is for everybody. At what point do we collectively decide that not every life event needs a live stream? Leave your verdict in the comments. I'm reading every single one of them tonight. I'm picking my favorites. I might respond. I might not. The mystery is part of the fun. And one last thing before I go. Because there's a tiny rumor circulating in the corners of the gossip side of the internet right now that nobody has fully confirmed yet, but it explains a lot of this week's energy. Insiders are quietly suggesting that several of these public moments, the anti-filing, the boxing aftermath, even some of the celebrity live rants, are not happening in isolation. They're happening because the algorithm has shifted in the last 60 days to reward exactly this kind of high-drama, low-resolution conflict content. Which means we are not just watching people lose their minds. We are watching people perform losing their minds. For payout. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name platforms. I'm not even going to name the analyst who whispered it to me. But the next time you see somebody do something that feels just slightly too on the nose, just slightly too well lit, just slightly too perfectly captured, ask yourself whether you are watching a meltdown, or watching a marketing campaign disguised as a meltdown. That's the part nobody on the big channels is going to say out loud. But you came here for the part nobody else is saying out loud. So now you have it. But before you scroll, before you tap, before you close the tab, let me drop one more piece of internal context that I have been sitting on for the entire video. Because I owe you the part 1 almost cut. The Tokyo Toni situation, the Ray J situation, the wedding cancellation clip, the cash van ex-boyfriend, even the Cardi rant, they all share one very specific timestamp pattern. All of them dropped within roughly a 6-day window. All of them blew up on the exact same 2 platforms. All of them benefited from a near-identical surge in algorithmic push between specific evening hours. And several of the people involved are quietly represented by the same handful of digital managers, the kind of managers who don't sign artists, they sign personalities. The kind of managers who treat virality the way a stockbroker treats earnings season. Now I am not telling you these stories are fake. I want to be very explicit about that. The paperwork is real. The hospital bed is presumably real. The wedding got called off. The cash got fanned. The bulldozer got driven. All of that happened. What I am saying is that the framing, the lighting, the timing, the multi-clip rollout, the way each moment lands precisely when the previous one is losing steam, looks less like coincidence and more like a content calendar. And if you have ever worked in any kind of media, you know exactly what I mean. There is no such thing as a perfect viral week without somebody behind the scenes doing the scheduling. Which brings me to my final thought, and I want you to actually hear me. The next time you find yourself rage watching one of these clips at 1 in the morning, ask yourself who benefited from your attention. Not the person on screen. Not necessarily. The platform. The promoter. The manager. The brand quietly attached to the corner of the frame. Attention is currency, and right now every one of these public meltdowns is somebody's deposit slip. Watch with awareness. Comment with awareness. Share with awareness. Because if we keep treating these moments like free entertainment, we keep funding the next one before the last one even cools off. And that's the thesis. That's the whole video. That's the part one was building toward the entire time. Not the Drake summer song debate. Not the anti-courthouse. Not the bulldozer. Not even the wedding. The thesis is that we are watching the conversion of human pain into measurable engagement metrics, and almost nobody on the timeline is comfortable enough to name it. Now I want you to do me one small favor. Pick one moment from this video. Just one. Maybe it's gorilla turning into a leaf. Maybe it's Cardi asking for the village. Maybe it's the fiancé saying it's not finished. Maybe it's Ray J in the hospital. Whichever one stuck with you the hardest, I want you to ask yourself why. Because the moments that stick are almost always the moments that say something about us, not about them. That's how this entire viral machine works. Lock in. Hit the like. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Drop your favorite story from this video in the comments. Tell me which one made your jaw drop. Tell me which one made you laugh. Tell me which one made you text your group chat. Tell me which one made you side-eye the entire entertainment industry. And remember, by the time the next story drops, half the people in this video will have already moved on to their next public moment. Because in this economy, healing is private but everything else is content. I'll see you in the next one. Stay nosy. Stay petty. Stay informed. Peace.